Everything you know about resurrection. It was written by men who weren't there. I found someone who was an ancient alien, who has been on Earth for over 2,000 years, revealed the truth to me. He saw what happened in Jerusalem, what humanity called a miracle and what history doesn't tell. And what he told me changed everything I thought about death, about pain, and about what the resurrection of Jesus really was like. What is about to be revealed neither confirms nor destroys your faith. It transforms it. You will understand why the resurrection is not the end of a story, but the beginning of a technology. The big question isn't what you believe, but what really happened in that tomb. And why was the truth hidden for 2 millennia? I'll tell you what he saw, exactly how it happened, and you'll have to decide. Before we dive deeper, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Grab yourself a warm drink, maybe a cup of tea or just some water, and sit back as we begin this journey together. Sarah Jenkins was 44 years old and had been dead inside for 6 months, ever since the night she held Michael's hand as he took his last breath. Cancer finally winning after 2 years of brutal struggle, chemotherapy, false remission, aggressive return, rapid decline. And there she was, wife of 20 years, best friend, soulmate, watching life slip from his eyes while promising she would take care of the boys, that she would stay strong. Necessary lies, she whispered as her world crumbled. 6 months later, Sarah merely existed, not lived. She mechanically cared for her children, Ethan, 15, and Lily, 12. She prepared breakfast that no one ate properly, took them to school, went to work as a literature teacher at the local high school, feigned normalcy for 6 hours, returned, made dinner, helped with homework, put them to bed, and then remained alone in the deafening silence of the house that used to be home and was now just a tomb filled with memories that cut through her every time she breathed. Michael's room remained untouched. Clothes in the closet, books on the bedside table, reading glasses where he left them. Sarah couldn't touch anything, couldn't dismantle that sanctuary because it would mean admitting that he would never return, that he was definitely dead. A word her mind rejected, even knowing that his body had been cremated, his ashes scattered in the river he loved. A beautiful ceremony she didn't remember because she was numb, floating somewhere between denial and despair. Guilt gnawed at her. Obsessive thoughts, swirling endlessly. She could have done more. She should have insisted on a second opinion sooner. Perhaps experimental treatment, perhaps another hospital. And anger, too. Anger at God, or the universe, or whoever controls these things. Why him, a good man, a devoted father? Why take his life away at 46? Why destroy his family? An unanswered question that screamed internally every night. That night marked exactly 6 months, the anniversary of their death, as they morbidly call it. Ethan and Lily were finally asleep after a silent dinner where neither mentioned the date, but everyone knew. Sarah was alone in the room she had shared with Michael for 20 years, sitting on the edge of the bed, holding her favorite photo, the two of them on their honeymoon at the Grand Canyon. Huge smiles, young, whole, with no idea what the future held. And tears streamed silently because she didn't even have the energy to sob anymore, just a constant leak of pain that never dried. She whispered for the camera, "I can't take it anymore, Michael. I can't do this without you. The children need a present mother, and I'm dead. Just an empty shell, pretending. How do I do this? How do I live when half of me has been ripped away?" And part of it, a terrifying part that grew every day, thought it would be easier to simply go to reunite with him wherever he is. But children, always children, holding her here, an obligation that prevented liberation. Then light appeared, a pale blue shining through the bedroom window. Not car headlights because the window overlooked a secluded side garden. Not street lights because the tone was wrong. A soft, pulsating blue. And Sarah looked without real curiosity, without fear, just numbness, vaguely thinking it was a reflection of something. Perhaps moonlight through the clouds. And it didn't matter. What difference did it make? But the light remained, intensifying slightly. And something in her, perhaps a basic survival instinct, made her get up and walk to the window, bare feet on the soft carpet, more to check if there was something wrong outside, some problem she needed to solve. And when she got close to the curtain and looked at the garden, she froze. Someone was there, standing near the wooden fence among the hydrangeas that Michael had planted 2 years ago. A tall figure, very tall, thin, motionless, just observing the house. And Sarah's first thought was intruder, but the shape was wrong. Strange proportions even in the diffused light. And her second thought was neighbor. But no neighbor had that height or posture. And her third thought simply froze because it had no logical explanation. Sarah should have screamed, woken the children, called the police, locked all the doors. But something in that figure's posture, something in the way it stood, not threatening, but almost reverent, made her just stand there watching back. And then, impossible, but happening, a voice in her head, not an external sound, but an internal one, clear and soft. Don't be afraid. I didn't come to cause harm, just watching. I can leave if you prefer. Sarah blinked, her hand gripping the curtain, processing that she had just heard a voice that didn't come from her ears, and she should be terrified. But she was so numb from 6 months of pain that even that seemed distant, unreal. And she thought, I'm hallucinating. They finally broke it. It would be funny if it weren't so pathetic. The voice came again, gentle, almost apologetic. You're not hallucinating. I'm real. Of a different origin, not from this earth specifically, but physically present. I can prove it if necessary. How? Sarah thought, not even trying to speak aloud, just thinking. And surprisingly, the answer came. Open the window. Reach out. You'll feel the temperature, the physical touch on a leaf or branch that will establish that you're awake and conscious. Then we can talk, or I can leave. The choice is entirely yours. Sarah hesitated, logic screaming that this was madness. But something deeper, perhaps complete exhaustion with normality that had brought only pain, made her unlock the window and open it. Cold Oregon air entering, the smell of damp grass and earth, and she reached out, touching the leaf of the nearest hydrangea, solid, real, wet with dew. Okay, she thought, I'm awake. Is this real or a very convincing hallucination? Who are you, and what do you want? The figure took a step closer, emerging from the shadows into an area illuminated by the blue light that seemed to emanate from itself. And Sarah saw clearly now not human, definitely not human. Skin with a bluish-gray tone, smooth but with a subtle pattern like microscopic scales, a head slightly too large, immense and completely black eyes reflecting that blue light, and a thin body with joints that bent slightly incorrectly. I am an observer, the answer came telepathically. My species studies civilizations. We document. We learn. We generally don't interfere. We only observe. I have been on this planet for a very long time. Millennia in your terms. I have witnessed significant events, moments that changed trajectories. And tonight, passing through this area, I felt something, a specific frequency of profound suffering, and I recognized a pattern, so I stopped. Against protocol, perhaps, but compassion sometimes overcomes rules. Sarah processed it all. An alien. She was talking to an alien in a garden at 11 at night, 6 months after burying her husband. And all she could think was, of course, why not? Life doesn't make sense anymore anyway. And she said aloud for the first time, her voice hoarse from not using it much. What do you want? Why are you here specifically? The creature tilted its head, a curiously human gesture. I came because I recognize what you feel. I've seen countless humans in this state throughout the ages. Devastating loss, emotional death while the body still functions, and most don't survive whole, but some find a way through, transform pain into something more. And you're at a critical moment of choice. I feel it. Sarah felt a sudden rage. The first strong emotion in weeks besides sadness. You know nothing about what I feel. You lost the love of your life. If you had to tell your children that their father died, you had to keep pretending that life matters when all you want is to disappear. The creature didn't back down. It just kept those impossible eyes fixed on her. Not personally, no. My kind doesn't form bonds the way you do. But I've observed this suffering thousands of times, documented it, studied it, and learned that there are patterns, stages, and possibilities for transformation if you have the right guidance. And you're that guide, Sarah said, her tone skeptical. An alien savior appearing in my garden to heal me with cosmic wisdom. The creature made a sound, not exactly laughter, but close to it. Not a savior, just a witness. Someone who has seen much, learned much, and can share a perspective that might help or might not. Free will, always preserved. I can leave now if you prefer to stay alone with the pain. Sarah looked at the house behind her, dark and silent, then at the impossible creature in front, and something in her, perhaps despair or last curiosity before giving up completely, made her say, "No. Stay. Speak. What do you think you can tell me that will make a difference?" The creature visibly relaxed, shoulders slumping slightly, and said, "You need to leave. I can't go inside the house. The energy of the sleeping children is delicate. My presence would disturb it. But in the garden, we can talk. I can show you things, share memories, millennia of perspective, and perhaps, just perhaps, you'll see your own pain from a different angle." Sarah hesitated, leaving the house, going to the garden with the alien. Complete absurdity. But also, what exactly did she have to lose? So without thinking too much, because thought only led to paralysis, she climbed onto the low windowsill and jumped, landing on damp grass cold under her bare feet, and followed the creature to the center of the small garden. They stood still, Sarah wrapping herself up against the cold, the creature merely observing patiently. And finally, Sarah asked, "So what do you want to show me? What ancient perspective will make a widow of 6 months feel better?" The creature answered slowly, carefully, "I won't make you feel better instantly. Pain is real and deserves to be felt. But I can show you that what you're going through isn't unique. It's not random. There's a pattern to it, a process that countless others have gone through. And there's another side if you know how to navigate it. But you need to see it with your own eyes, not just hear my words." "See how?" Sarah asked. And the creature replied, "I can share memories directly, a deep telepathic touch. You will see through my eyes events I witnessed, people who went through loss similar to yours, and how they got through it. No guarantee of a cure, but at least proof that it's possible. Are you willing?" Sarah looked at trembling hands from cold or emotion she didn't know, and thought of Michael, of emptiness, of the emotional tomb where she had lived for months, and said, "Okay, show me. It can't be worse than where I am now." The creature extended its hand, 3 long, elegant fingers, and touched Sarah's forehead, a cold but not unpleasant touch, and said, "You'll feel dizzy. You'll see things you don't fully understand at first, but observe, absorb, then we'll talk about the meaning. Ready?" Sarah nodded, and the creature pressed lightly, and reality began to dissolve. The garden vanished. Oregon disappeared. The cold and damp grass evaporated, and Sarah felt a fall, not physical, but sensory, like plunging into water that wasn't water. And when her vision stabilized, she was no longer in her own body. She was seeing through other eyes, a higher perspective, subtly different colors, and all around her dry and intense heat, scorching sun, noisy crowd, the smell of sweat and dust and fear. She was surrounded by hundreds of people, dressed in thick fabric, faces burned by the sun, shouting in a language she didn't know, but somehow understood. Fragments arriving. "Crucify him! He deserves to die! Traitor!" And she understood that she was witnessing a public execution. And not just any execution, something significant. The energy in the crowd was different. A mixture of hatred and guilt and morbid excitement. Ahead, Roman soldiers pushed 3 men, each carrying a heavy wooden beam, and the one in the middle was younger, perhaps in his early 30s. Dark beard, face covered in dried blood and sweat, tunic torn, back visibly bruised, and he walked unsteadily, each step costing visible effort. But there was something in his posture, a strange dignity despite the humiliation, as if he carried a burden not only physical, but consciously chosen. Sarah wanted to look away, but had no control. She could only observe through the perspective of the alien who was there, invisible or ignored, documenting everything. She followed the man in the middle up the rocky hill, a desolate place outside the city walls, and saw soldiers force him to lie on wood, arms outstretched, hammers falling, metal piercing flesh, and the horrible sound of nails being hammered in. She felt a nausea she couldn't express, because she didn't have her own body there. The cross was raised, a body hanging against the merciless sky. And what Sarah saw afterward was not a quick death, but prolonged agony, hours of suffering, tortured breaths, muscles trembling with exhaustion, sun burning, exposed skin, unbearable thirst, and a crowd watching, some mocking, others crying, and the man in the middle occasionally spoke words that Sarah half picked up through the alien's memory. Forgive them. Words for the people at the foot of the cross. Take care of each other. And Sarah recognized something in those final words, concern for others even in her own extreme suffering. Michael had done the same. His last words were about her and the children, not about his own pain. Late came. The light shifted and the man shouted something, his voice strong despite everything, and his head fell forward, his body becoming limp, and the soldier checked with a spear, confirming death. And Sarah felt through the alien's perception not only sadness but recognition, as if this were the end of something, but also a beginning, a turning point, death that meant more than cessation. The body was hastily removed, the sun setting, men weeping as they wrapped it in linen cloth, and a small group carried it to a nearby garden where there was a tomb carved into the rock, a cave with a low entrance, and they placed the body inside. A quick job because religious times were approaching and a large stone was rolled away, closing the entrance, and guards were positioned, and everyone left, leaving the dead man in the darkness. And here the vision changed. It didn't show what was inside the tomb. Sarah sensed deliberation in this, the alien choosing not to show that part, instead showing what happened outside. 3 days passing, time compressed in memory. Women returning on the morning of the third day, carrying spices and oils to properly prepare their bodies now that the Sabbath had passed, walking in the dim light of dawn, talking amongst themselves, worried about how they would move the heavy stone. But when they arrived, the stone had already been moved, rolled aside, the entrance opened, and the guards had disappeared or fled, and the women hesitated. Then one entered, a muffled cry, and others followed, and Sarah saw through the eyes of the alien watching from a distance. She saw women staggering out, confused, frightened, talking rapidly amongst themselves. Empty tomb. He's not there. The body disappeared. Someone took it and they couldn't finish their sentences. They didn't dare say what they thought. Visions showed the following days. Fragments, rumors, spreading through the city. A stolen body. Some said, a resurrected body. Others claimed, reported apparitions. People swearing they had seen the man alive, talked to him, touched his wounds, eaten with him. But the alien didn't show these apparitions to Sarah. Only reactions, chaos, confusion, fear, hope. Followers transformed from a desperate group hiding in fear into something different. Daring, right? As if something fundamental had changed in them. And then the vision jumped forward in time. Weeks later, a group gathered, 50 perhaps, and a man speaking. Not the crucified one, another older, a fisherman by his attire. And he spoke with a conviction he hadn't had before, about transformation. About death not being an end, but a portal. About descending into darkness and emerging changed, and people listening, some crying, others with expressions of recognition as if he were describing something they had also lived through. Vision accelerated further. Years passing, decades, the movement growing, not by force or coercion, but by something contagious. People changing, not externally, but internally. Something about confronting their own death, their own fear, their own darkness, and emerging different, and an alien observing everything, documenting, trying to understand what exactly had happened in those 3 days that transformed people so profoundly. And finally, the vision showed the last fragment centuries later, teachings being written, codified. But the alien felt that something was being lost in translation, the physical event being emphasized. Debate about literalness, but a deeper meaning. A process that man had demonstrated through his own suffering and what came after. That meaning was being buried under doctrine and dogma, and the alien felt frustration, a desire to preserve the deeper truth he had witnessed. The vision dissolved. Sarah pulled back through millennia, and she was once again in a cold garden in Oregon, wet grass beneath her feet, icy air in her lungs, and the alien removing its hand from her forehead, and she fell seated, legs weak, her mind processing everything she had seen: brutal execution, empty tomb, transformed people, movement being born. And she looked at the creature and whispered, "I saw it, but I didn't understand it. Why did you show me this? What does it have to do with me, with Michael, with what I'm going through?" The alien also sat down in a strangely human posture and responded telepathically. "I showed you what that man experienced in those days. What he demonstrated through suffering and what came after wasn't just for him. It was a map, a pattern, a process that anyone can go through. You lost Michael. Your previous life died with him. You were emotionally crucified, nailed to pain, and now you're in the tomb, buried in darkness for 6 months. And what you need to understand is that the tomb isn't the end. It's a means, a necessary stage before transformation. But most people don't know this. They remain trapped in the tomb, thinking it's their final destination." Sarah felt anger, so he was saying, "I should resurrect, like him. Magically overcome it, pretend the pain doesn't exist." The alien shook his head. "No magic, no pretending. A real painful process that requires choice and work. And you don't resurrect to an old life. That one is permanently dead. You resurrect to a new life, a transformed identity. But to understand how, you need to understand the stages. What he went through and what you are going through are the same, just one physical and the other emotional. I can explain if you are willing to listen, willing to consider that the pain you feel now is not an end, but a means." Sarah remained silent, the cold grass beneath her, her mind still processing images from 2,000 years ago, and finally asked in a weary voice, "Then explain what stages. How does what I saw connect with losing my husband?" The alien adjusted its posture, making itself more comfortable on the garden floor, as if preparing for a long conversation, and began, "What that man experienced physically in 3 days, you are experiencing emotionally in months or years. 3 inevitable stages after a devastating loss, and understanding where you are in the process helps you navigate instead of drowning. First stage, crucifixion." The alien continued, "Not literally, obviously, but symbolically when something dies violently, ripped from you. Michael was ripped away. The life he knew was destroyed. His identity as wife, partner, half of unity, was nailed and killed. And it hurts. Agonizing, prolonged, not a quick death, but a slow one. Each day without him is a new nail. Each memory is a hammer falling. And you are hanging in this pain, exposed, humiliated, because grief is public even when we wanted it private, and there is no way to come down from the cross, only to wait for the pain to eventually kill the old you completely." Sarah felt tears. Yes, exactly that. Dying slowly, publicly, everyone watching, offering empty condolences, while he drowned. And the alien continued, "That man on the cross lost everything too. Disciples fled, denied knowing him. The crowd that loved him days before now screamed for his death. He died not only physically, but emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. Everything he was destroyed in those hours. And you, Sarah, your identity as Michael's wife, dreams of growing old together, planned future, all of that died with him. Crucifixion is not just about him, it's about you, too. And this stage cannot be skipped," the alien said firmly. "It cannot be accelerated. It cannot be avoided with positive thinking or denial, or by keeping busy. It has to be felt completely. It has to die completely. Resistance prolongs agony. Acceptance allows it to be completed. How long it takes depends on the depth of loss and willingness to feel without running away. For you, 6 months, maybe more. But eventually, old age, you die. You have to die, because you cannot carry a dead identity into a new life. Second stage," the alien continued, "burial tomb. And you are here now, Sarah. This is your current stage. You died but haven't been reborn yet. You are in the dark, isolated, even surrounded by people. Children need you, but you are distant. Friends call, but you don't really answer. You are buried in pain in a house that has become a tomb full of memories. Michael's room untouched like a sanctuary. You locked a stone at the entrance, and you are sitting in the dark with what died. And this stage is also necessary." Alien said, It's not depression that needs to be medicated immediately. Although external help is valid, it's a process. A womb before birth, a seed in the earth before sprouting, a cocoon before a butterfly. Darkness is not the enemy. It's an incubator. But most people don't understand this. They think the grave is the final destination. They establish residence there. Years pass, decades, and they remain buried, emotionally dead, forever. But it doesn't have to be that way. Sarah wiped away tears. So what? How do I get out? How do I move this stone from this tomb? The alien stared intently. Here is the crucial truth I've observed in millennia studying this pattern. Stone isn't moved from the outside. External help can support, but real transformation comes from within. You move stone. But to do that, you first need to understand what stone represents. It's not pain itself. Pain is part of the process. Stone is belief. A story you tell yourself about what loss means. What story? Sarah asked, confused. And the alien replied, the story that you died with him permanently, that you will never be happy again, that life ended at 46, that half of you was ripped away and you can't function without it. These beliefs are like stone, heavy, seemingly impossible to move, locking you inside. But they are just thoughts, not absolute truth. And when you realize this, when you question these beliefs and choose others, the stone begins to move. But it's true, Sarah protested, her voice rising. He was half of me. We were one. How can I be whole without him? The alien tilted his head. You were one, yes, but one doesn't mean dependence for existence. You existed before him. You will exist after. Continuity of consciousness doesn't break with the death of another. It hurts terribly because the connection was deep, but you are not half. You are whole. You always have been. He added to your life, enriched it, but he didn't define your capacity to exist, and believing that you died with him is a stone that binds you. Sarah felt anger and something else, resistance, because accepting that meant letting go of a victimhood narrative that strangely comforted her. Being a broken widow was her identity, painful but familiar, and the alien continued as if reading her mind. I understand resistance. The grave is dark but familiar. Rebirth is unknown and frightening. Who will you be without pain as your central identity, without grief as your purpose? It's terrifying, but the alternative is to remain dead, and you have children watching, learning how to cope with loss through your example. Do you want to teach them that the grave is home, or that it's just a passage? That was a low blow. And the alien knew it, but effective. Sarah thought of Ethan and Lily, how quiet they were, how sad they were, watching their mother crumble, and something in her maternal instinct, still working when everything else failed, protested. So, what do I do? Sarah asked, her voice breaking. How do I move stone? How do I get out of here? The alien replied. Third stage, resurrection. It's not a return to the old life that's dead and must remain dead, but it's an emergence into new life. A transformed identity, still you, but different. Still a mother, but not defined solely by losing a husband. Still loving, but not dependent on a specific love to function. And it's not instantaneous, the alien warned. It's not the literal morning of the third day. It's a gradual process. It begins with choice, a conscious decision to move a stone. It can be small, an action that old you would never do. Rummaging through Michael's room, donating clothes, not erasing him, but integrating loss instead of being consumed by it. Each choice moves a stone slightly. Eventually, light enters, and you emerge, still with scars, visible wounds like that man had when he came out of the tomb, but alive, functioning, transformed. Sarah remained quiet, processing, and finally asked, what if I can't do it? What if the stone is too heavy? What if I don't have the strength? The alien replied gently. No one has strength alone. That's why community matters. Those women who went to the tomb on the morning of the third day, they went together, not alone. You have children, friends, a therapist perhaps. You don't need to move the stone alone, but you need to choose to want to leave. That part no one can do for you. Free will, always free will. And choice isn't a one-time thing. It's daily, sometimes hourly, choosing to leave the darkness repeatedly until it becomes a habit, until light is more familiar than the tomb. Sarah looked at the house at the bedroom window where she had been holding a photo of Michael crying at the life that had become a prison and asked, "If I choose this, if I try to move stone, how do I know there's something on the other side? How do I know I won't just be trading one pain for another?" The alien touched her hand lightly, cold but comforting. "Because I've seen countless people do this throughout the ages. I've watched humans in utter despair choose to emerge, and all, absolutely all who did the work of moving stone, found life on the other side. Not perfect, not without pain, but livable with moments of joy, renewed purpose, the ability to love again. Not replacing Michael, but honoring him by living fully. That is resurrection. Not a supernatural miracle, but a profoundly human choice to live despite everything." Sarah remained silent for a long time, processing everything, and finally said, "So, tell me something. You've observed for millennia. You've seen countless people go through this. Why do some manage to leave the grave and others remain trapped forever?" The alien looked at stars beginning to appear between the clouds and replied, "The difference isn't strength or courage or faith. It's understanding. Those who emerge understand that the grave is not home. It's a passage. Those who remain trapped believe that loyalty to the dead demands their own emotional death. They confuse grief with life imprisonment." "And how do I know," Sarah asked, "if I'm honoring Michael or trapping myself?" The alien turned those immense eyes to her. "Michael has been dead for 6 months. Have you touched anything of his? Donated clothes? Moved photos? Anything?" Sarah shook her head. "I can't. It feels wrong, like I'm erasing him." The alien nodded. "I understand the feeling. But consider this. He was consciousness, living a human experience for a limited time. He fulfilled what he came to do, loved deeply, was a father, a partner, left his mark, and now his consciousness continues. Not here, but in another form, another plane that your physics doesn't yet measure, but exists. He's not enclosed in the closet or untouched photos. He's beyond. And by trapping objects as a sanctuary, you're trapping yourself, not him." Sarah felt a tightening in her chest. "Are you saying that what is gone is somewhere better and I should just get over it?" The alien shook his head. "Not get over it, integrate it. And he didn't go away in the sense of abandoning me. Consciousness transcends physical space. The connection they had doesn't break with the death of the body. It just changes form. Don't you feel his presence sometimes in quiet moments, as if he were close, even though he wasn't visible?" Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sometimes. But I thought it was my imagination. Desperation, creating false comfort," Alien said. "And it's not false. His consciousness still exists. Not trapped here, but not completely separate either. And he doesn't want you trapped in a tomb of memories. Consciousnesses that loved don't want eternal suffering for those who remain. They want continuity, life, joy, eventually. Honoring his death isn't about suffering forever. It's about living with an intensity he can no longer possess, carrying lessons, love, and moving on. That's honor. Eternal suffering only wastes your unique experience here." "But I feel guilty," Sarah said, her voice breaking anger too. "Anger at God or the universe or whatever controls it. Why take him away so soon? 46 years old, young children, a whole life ahead of him. Where is the justice in that? Where is the divine love in that?" The alien was quiet for a moment, then said carefully, "Your species has difficulty with the concept of temporality as an illusion. They think of life as linear, birth to death, short or long, fair or unfair. But from a broader perspective, each consciousness comes to experience what it needs. Time is not relevant in the way they think. Michael lived his complete experience, uninterrupted, completed. 46 years were enough for what he came to do. And the anger you feel is not because he was unjustly taken away. It's your pain of being left behind. And that pain is valid, but it doesn't mean that something wrong happened cosmically." "That doesn't make sense," Sarah protested. "How can 46 years be enough? He had so much more to live, to do, to see children grow up, to grow old with me, dreams, plans." The alien replied, From a limited human perspective, it seems incomplete. But consciousness doesn't measure success in years lived. It measures it in experiences had, lessons learned, love given and received, connections formed, and he did that fully. And now he's in another stage of existence. Not better or worse, just different. And you're still here because your experience isn't complete. You have more to do, more to live, and anger at God or the universe for that is wasting the time you have. Sarah wiped away tears. So, what do I do with anger? Do I simply ignore it? Pretend it doesn't exist? The alien said. No. Anger needs to be felt, expressed, but understood for what it is. Not anger at cosmic injustice, but the pain of personal loss. And pain is legitimate. It deserves space. But using anger as a shield against deeper sadness keeps you in the crucifixion stage. You never reach the tomb where transformation happens. Anger is heat that burns, but doesn't warm. Sadness is cold that penetrates but eventually passes, leaving clarity. And how exactly do I move a stone? Sarah asked. The metaphor is beautiful, but concretely tomorrow, what do I do? The alien looked directly at her. It begins by identifying which specific belief binds you most. For you, what is it? What prevents you from moving in his room, from laughing again, from considering the future? Sarah thought, her fingers moving through the cold grass, and said slowly, I think I feel I don't deserve to continue when he can't. It's not fair. How can I be happy when he's dead? It feels like betrayal. That's the stone, the alien said. The belief that your life only has value in relation to him. But consider this. You existed before him for decades as an individual, and you will exist afterward. He enriched your life. He didn't create it, and he wouldn't want you emotionally dead because of misguided loyalty. The consciousness that loved you wants your continuity, your growth, your eventual joy. Because real love isn't possessive, even after death. So the first step is to question this belief consciously, repeatedly, until it loses its power. And then? Sarah asked. And the alien replied. After small actions that contradict belief, she rummages through one of his drawers. Not everything, just one. Donates t-shirts he wore a lot but that have no special meaning. Keeps the ones that do. Gradually transforming sanctuary into integrated memory, and observes. He won't feel betrayal. He'll feel relief. Weight leaving, light entering. This is stone moving. Not all at once, but gradually until the opening is large enough to come out. Sarah looked at the house, the bedroom window still lit, and said, What if I try and fail? What if the stone is too heavy? The alien replied, Then ask for help, friend, sister, therapist. Those women who went to the tomb on the morning of the third day didn't go alone. They went together. You don't need to do this in isolation. And children too. They are in their own process. They can do it together, each choosing their own item, performing a ritual of letting go, but remembering, transforming shared pain into shared healing. How long? Sarah whispered. How long until it stops hurting? The alien shook its head. It never stops completely. It just changes. Sharp to soft, constant to occasional. And one day you realize that an hour has passed without pain. Then another day, not because you've forgotten, but because you've integrated it. It becomes part of the fabric of who you are. Not a whole, but a different thread woven together. And that is resurrection. Not forgetting or replacing, but transforming pain into something you carry without breaking you. They sat longer, the cold increasing, and Sarah finally asked, Why did you show me all this? What do you gain by appearing here? The alien looked at her and replied, 2,000 years ago, that man emerging from the tomb saw me. His heightened consciousness perceived a presence that others did not, and said something, a subtle testimony, not literal but in essence. Then, through the ages, when pain is high enough, and a person is ready to hear I appear, plant a seed, and sometimes it grows, and when you emerge, your story will plant seeds in others, living proof that the process works, and the cycle continues through generations. Slowly got up, her legs numb, and looked at her house, at the life she needed to rebuild, and said, I don't know if I can, but I'll try tomorrow. Something small. The alien also got up and said, Trying is all that's asked. Try again tomorrow until it becomes a habit. And when you doubt, remember he emerged, transformed. Countless others have emerged. You can too. It's just a matter of choosing to begin. The alien stepped back, the blue light around him intensifying slightly, and said, I need to leave. Time here is limited. Planetary energies don't allow for prolonged presence without consequences. But before I go, I want you to understand the complete connection between what you saw and what you are experiencing. It's not a coincidence. It's not a forced analogy. It's literally the same process. Sarah looked at him, still processing everything. And the alien continued. That man was crucified, died publicly and humiliatingly. Everything he was destroyed in hours. You were crucified emotionally when Michael died. Identity as his wife, shared dreams, planned future, all destroyed. Same process. One physical, the other emotional but identical essence. Death of the old self. He was placed in a tomb. Stone sealed. Total darkness. 3 days. Processing. Transforming. And you've been in the tomb for 6 months. Home is tomb. His room is tomb. Pain is darkness. And it's processing, even if you don't realize it. Each day in the tomb is a day of gestation, preparation for rebirth. Not wasted time, but necessary, the alien said. And Sarah felt the truth of it in a way she couldn't explain. And he emerged, the alien continued. Not as he was before. Transformed a glorified body, texts say. But what does that really mean? It means a reconstructed identity. Wounds still visible but not bleeding. Recognizable but different. And that's what you will do if you choose. You don't go back to being the Sarah you were with Michael. That one died. You emerge as a new Sarah. Still a mother, still you, but transformed by loss deeper, more compassionate, more aware of the fragility and preciousness of life. But he, Sarah hesitated. Had he really physically resurrected or not? She didn't know how to ask without sounding offensive. The alien replied without offense. Humans have debated this question for 2,000 years and will continue to debate it. And the purpose is not to resolve the debate. The purpose is to understand that regardless of physical literalness, the process he demonstrated is real and replicable. He showed a map through his experience, and a map works even if you never know for sure if the physical event happened exactly as described. A deeper truth transcends literalness. Sarah nodded slowly. So, you're saying resurrection isn't about him coming back from the dead. It's about the process of dying and being reborn that everyone goes through. The alien gently corrected. It's about both. His event was real in some way. I witnessed it. But its meaning for you doesn't depend on proving its literalness. It depends on applying the process to your life. And that process is this death of the old self. Time in the tomb transforming the choice to emerge different. That's resurrection. Not a miracle that happened once 2,000 years ago, but a universal pattern that happens constantly when someone chooses to be reborn after devastation. And those people, Sarah said, those who were transformed later, the disciples who were hiding in fear and then came out boldly. What changed in them? The alien replied. They saw that death was not the end. Not just for them, but in a general concept. They saw that the grave is a passage, not a destination, and that liberated them. The fear of loss diminished, because they understood that nothing truly important can be permanently lost. Consciousness continues. Love continues. Only form changes. And when you live without the paralyzing fear of loss, you live fully boldly, and that was their transformation. Not magic, but profound understanding. And I can have this, Sarah asked. This understanding, even without having seen what they saw? The alien said, You are seeing now, through me, through your own pain. The tomb that is there is as real as the tomb of that day, and the choice to emerge is the same. And when you emerge, you too will be a witness, not of an event 2,000 years ago, but of a timeless process. And your story will help others in the tomb, will show that there is a way out, that resurrection is not an ancient legend, but a present reality. The blue light intensified further, the alien clearly preparing to leave. And he said one last thing. When he emerged from that tomb, the first people he saw were women who loved him, who went looking for him. even though they thought they would only find a body. And he sent them with a message. Go and tell the others you will do the same eventually. When you emerge, don't keep the story to yourself. Tell it, because there are millions in the tomb right now, thinking it's their final destination, and your emergence will be proof that it isn't. Sarah felt the weight of it, but also something more purpose, perhaps a small spark, and asked, "How long will you stay? Can I see you again if I need to?" The alien shook its head. "I won't return. This is a one-off intervention. The rest is up to you, but you're not alone." It pointed to the sky. Michael's consciousness continues to exist, not here, but nearby, in a way you don't yet understand. And he's rooting for your healing, for your emergence. And there are others, too, alive who can help if you allow them to. And there's something greater, a force that your species calls God, or the universe, or the source. And this force is always pushing towards growth, healing, evolution. You just need to stop resisting and flow with it. Sarah felt tears again, but different ones. Not just sadness, but something more complex, and she said, "Thank you for appearing, for showing herself, for—" She was speechless. The alien bowed its head. "Gratitude unnecessary. Just use what it has learned. Move, stone, emerge, live. And when it finds others in the tomb, and it will, it tells stories, plants, seeds. The cycle continues. That is gratitude enough." And with that, blue light enveloped it completely, its form becoming less solid, more translucent. And in a moment, it was simply no longer there, vanished as it had appeared. And Sarah was alone in the cold garden under the stars. She stood there for minutes, processing whether it had really happened, and looked at her own hands, solid, real, wet grass beneath her feet, cold, penetrating, not a dream, not a hallucination. Or if it was what she needed. She walked back home, climbing through the window, closing it, and stood in her room looking at Michael's photo still on the bed where she had left it. And for the first time in 6 months, she didn't just feel pain when she looked at it. She felt something more. A memory of love without immediate agony. A small change, but present. She looked at his bedroom door, closed for 6 months, and thought about stone, about the grave, about choice. And she still hadn't opened the door. She wasn't ready, but for the first time, she considered that perhaps one day she would be. And that was something small, but real. She finally lay down exhausted, and before sleeping, she thought about 3 days, about transformation, about Sarah, who she was, and Sarah, who she could become. And for the first time in months, thoughts of the future didn't just bring despair. They brought a little curiosity. Who will I be when I emerge? What life exists on the other side of the grave? She slept and dreamed of Michael. Not a nightmare as usual, but a good memory. Them laughing about something silly, and she woke up with tears, but also a weak smile, and realized he still exists in me. In memories, in the love we shared, not lost, transformed, carried differently. She got up, prepared breakfast. Ethan and Lily came downstairs, and instead of the usual silence, Sarah said something. "Let's make pancakes, Dad's favorites, and cook together and tell stories about him while we eat. What do you think?" The children looked surprised, then Ethan said carefully, "Are you sure, Mom? Can you do it?" And Sarah answered honestly, "I don't know, but I'll try." And trying is starting. And Dad would want us to try, wouldn't he? And Lily nodded, her eyes filling with tears, and said, "He always said that love doesn't end, it just changes." And Sarah felt those words, a lesson Michael had taught her, and she had forgotten, and said, "Exactly. So let's remember him the right way, with love, not just sadness. Can you do that with me?" And they did. Breakfast with tears and laughter mixed together, telling stories, and it didn't heal everything. It didn't move a stone completely, but it let a sliver of light in. And Sarah understood. That's it. Resurrection isn't instantaneous. It's small choices repeated. Daily attempts until the tomb is no longer home. And light is more familiar than darkness. And that man 2,000 years ago showed that. And the alien showed it again, and now she would do it one day at a time, one choice at a time, until she emerged, transformed, a living witness that resurrection is not a myth, but a real process available to all who choose to live. after dying. 6 months after that impossible encounter in the garden, Sarah stood before a small support group for widows, 12 women sitting in a circle in the basement of the local church, all carrying the weight of loss, all at different stages of their lives. And she took a deep breath and began to tell the story. Not the whole thing, not the part about the alien, that would sound insane, but the essence, the process, the 3 stages she had lived through and was still living through. She spoke of emotional crucifixion, of how identity was destroyed when Michael died, of the 6-month tomb where she almost remained forever, and of the small but crucial choice to begin moving the stone. And she saw recognition in their eyes, some crying, others nodding, all understanding because they were all experiencing exactly the same thing. And Sarah realized Alien was right. When you emerge, you become a witness, living proof that the process works and history plants seeds in others, still in the dark. And now, months after starting to write this story, I want to speak directly to you, the viewer. Because if you've made it this far, if Sarah's story has resonated with you, there's a good chance that you too are in the grave in some way. Not necessarily the death of a loved one, but the death of something. A relationship that ended, a job that was lost, health that failed, a dream that died, an identity that collapsed, and you're sitting in the darkness thinking it's your final destiny, that life is over. That resurrection is just a beautiful story for others, but not for you. And I want you to understand something crucial, that alien revealed, through a memory from 2,000 years ago. Resurrection was never about a single miracle that happened once, and that's it. It was always about a universal process, a pattern that constantly repeats itself, a spiritual code embedded in a historical event, a teaching that transcends religion or belief or literalness. It's about what happens, what can happen, when you die without your body dying and choose to be reborn. You will be crucified in life multiple times, not literally, but emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. Something you love will be violently ripped away. Something that is part of you will die. And it hurts agonizingly, prolonged, publicly even when you want it private. And there is no way to avoid it. There is no shortcut. Resisting only prolongs the agony. Accepting it allows it to be completed. And crucifixion is not punishment. It's not God or the universe being cruel. It's initiation, a portal, a moment where the old you needs to die so the new you can be born. And the more you cling to what is dying, the more painful crucifixion becomes. Letting go doesn't mean it doesn't matter. It means recognizing that transformation requires the death of something and allowing it to die completely instead of keeping it half alive in perpetual agony. That man on the cross 2,000 years ago lost everything in hours. Disciples, reputation, life, everything publicly crucified and dead. You may lose in days, weeks, or months, but the essence is the same: death to the old self. And he demonstrated something crucial. Even in extreme agony, compassion remained. He forgave them, cared for one another. Words that show that external destruction doesn't have to destroy internal essence. You can be crucified and still choose love over bitterness. And that choice determines what comes next. The truth about the tomb. After crucifixion comes the tomb, inevitable, necessary. And most people don't understand this. They think the tomb is depression that needs immediate medication, a problem that needs to be solved quickly. But the tomb is not a disease. It's a stage, a womb before birth, a cocoon before a butterfly. Darkness where transformation happens on a level that light cannot reach. You will stay in the tomb for as long as you need. 3 days as a symbol, 3 months, 3 years. There is no fixed schedule. And while you are there, you process, confront the shadow, sit with pain without distraction. And this is terrible, but essential because you cannot be reborn without first allowing the complete death of what you were. And the tomb is where complete death happens, where the last vestiges of the old identity dissolve, preparing space for the new. But there is a crucial difference between being in the grave actively processing versus establishing permanent residence. The first is a stage of transformation. The second is a chosen prison. And the difference lies in the stone. That belief that keeps you locked up. For some, it's guilt. They should have done more. For others, it's anger. It's not fair. For others, it's fear. I will never be happy again, and the stone seems impossible to move, heavy, permanent. But it's just a thought, a story you tell yourself about what loss means, and thoughts can change if you allow them to. The truth about resurrection. Resurrection is not a return to the old life that is dead and must remain dead. Resurrection is an emergence into new life, a transformed identity. And it happens not when time passes, but when you choose. A conscious choice to move the stone, to question limiting beliefs, to do one small thing that you wouldn't do in your old age, and then another and another, until enough light enters, and the grave is no longer bearable than life. And when you emerge, you don't come out unscathed. Wounds remain visible, permanent scars like that man had after resurrection. Wounds on his wrists, on his side, but not bleeding, not incapacitating, just reminders of the journey. And you carry loss forever, but differently, integrated instead of consuming, part of the fabric of who you are instead of a whole that defines you. And that is transformation. Not forgetting or replacement, but a complete reconfiguration of how you carry pain. And resurrection is not selfishness or a betrayal of the memory of the one who died. It is honor because the consciousness that loved you, the person you lost, the work that defined you, the dream that nurtured, these things don't want you trapped in a tomb forever. The energy that was invested in you wants continuity, growth, eventual joy. So living fully after loss doesn't disrespect what died. It celebrates what was shared, choosing not to waste the life you still have. That alien observed for millennia, documented countless people going through this process, and the pattern never changes. Crucifixion kills the old self. The tomb transforms into darkness. Resurrection brings forth the new self. And each person who goes through this and emerges becomes a living witness, proof that emotional death is not final, that the tomb is a passage, that rebirth is possible regardless of how long one was trapped or how deep the pain was. Sarah was a witness to this. From a broken widow unable to function to a transformed woman bearing loss, but living fully, helping her children process, honoring Michael not by dying with him, but by living intensely because he can no longer. And her story plants seeds in other widows, and their stories will plant in others a cycle of resurrection continuing through generations, not as religious doctrine but as a shared human experience. And you, watching this now, where are you in the process? Still on the crucifixion, feeling everything being ripped away, sitting in the tomb in darkness, not knowing how to get out, or already emerging but doubting if the transformation is real. It doesn't matter where you are. What matters is that you understand it's a process, not destiny. That the tomb has an exit even when it seems impossible. That a stone can be moved even when it seems impossible. That resurrection is not a miracle, reserved for saints, but a standard available to anyone willing to choose to live after death.